Hello and welcome to the Wedding Dish Podcast. Grab your fork and knife and take a seat at our table as we dish on all things weddings. You'll hear stories and tips from real couples and wedding pros about love, life, and entrepreneurship. I, of course, am your hostess with the mostest who adds random letters throughout the conversation apparently today, Sarah Alapin. And I am also the CEO of Photos from the Harty and District Bliss. Before we get started, if you haven't listened to last week's episode of The Wedding Dish, it's a really good one. You should definitely put a pin in going back and checking that one out. And thank you everyone for tuning in today. Today, we are dishing with a seasoned wedding stylist and entrepreneur, just incredibly lovely human that I am so honored to be chatting with, the human behind the rescue kit, Risa Costas. Thank you so much for joining me on the Wedding Dish today.
I'm so excited to dish with you, Sarah. This is awesome. Thanks for having me.
I am so excited to have you here. You are just so much fun. We were chatting a little bit behind the scenes before we got started, and I think we have a lot in common, and I'm really excited for this conversation.
Me too.
Well, let's ditch. So you have an extensive background in the wedding industry, and it's such an incredibly diverse background, but all with a really awesome through line that I think just makes complete sense with who you are as a person. How did you get started in the wedding business? And I'd love to hear how your business evolved into the wedding emergency stylist.
Thank you so much for saying that. I think it's been hard to sort of nail down the direction that I should go because I have done so much and I've been in so many different industries. And I think when we're younger and we're not sure which direction to go and we sort of say yes to things and we make spontaneous moves across the country, in my case, or leaving college and then finishing non-traditionally later in life, all of those things feel very out of the box and very taboo. And then you get into your 40s and you have built a career and you start to realize, okay, that was all with purpose. So for me, it really began when I was 10 and started singing in weddings and grew up with a mother who's an incredible seamstress and was in the theater world and was a singer and just really had this love and passion for being on stage, being in front of people, creating amazing looks, creating amazing personas. And hi, buddy. Oh, I love dogs, so I'm easily distracted by them. I love
He just heard the mail come and he is just a little terrorist about the mail.
so are my dogs. So I fully co-sign all of this. That's great. So I feel right at home, Sarah. I do.
I love it.
Yeah. So, that whole persona and doing all of those things in my life, I had no idea that it would lead me to where I am today. I ended up leaving college, like I mentioned earlier, when I was, 19 years old and going to hairdressing school. And that is what propelled me into weddings. A girlfriend of mine, right before I graduated, asked me to do her hair and makeup for her wedding. And I had no business doing that, but she trusted me. And multiple trials later, I nailed her updo and her makeup, as well as her maid of honor. And it was the scariest thing I had ever done. But it was the first time that I realized, okay, I have something here. And whether I have a degree or not, there's a gift. There's this sort of spirit inside of me and this magic inside of me where I can not only make somebody feel really good and they can trust me, but I have a skill. And I think it's a skill that can take me somewhere, even though YouTube makeup videos didn't exist at the time. And if you wanted to become a makeup artist, I didn't even know, first of all, that was an option. This is late 90s, early 2000s. And I had no idea what was available to me, but I started this business when I was 21, when it actually began. And after being trusted by this person, I realized I can gain the trust of a bride. I have a skill and it's something that I really enjoyed. And I think it was this sort of ignition of, oh, I can make money doing this also. And this entrepreneurial spirit that I think had always been inside of me from the early days of selling newspapers in my neighborhood that we created about who needed a babysitter and who lost their cat, for 5 cents door to door. That's like really where it all began. So after I did that first wedding, I realized, okay, there's a business here, and moved from New England over to San Francisco with some girlfriends. And I started promoting myself as a makeup artist and hairstylist for weddings. And I was working at a day spa at the time and getting clients from customers and people who were walking through the door there that I knew were getting services leading up to their wedding day. I would just tell them, hey, do you have a makeup artist? Do you have a hairstylist? And I sort of faked it until I made it. And because in hairdressing school at the time, they weren't teaching you about updos. It was cuts and color and basic manicures and very generic cosmetology. It wasn't what we see today, and just the artistry of today. It was just so very different. It was very cookie cutter. And so I was completely self-taught, and I ended up booking a ton of brides on my own and getting my first paychecks, quote unquote, and realizing there's a job here. And I knew the feeling that I had with working with brides was something I never wanted to go away. And along that journey of living in San Francisco, I did fall into the fashion industry and ended up working for a handbag and shoe company. Did that for a couple of years, which took me all over the world and taught me everything there was to know about small business. And after that, I moved to New York City and became a publicist for a women's clothing line, and started sort of planting the seeds and leaving a trail of breadcrumbs for myself that would eventually lead me to Phoenix after that, and going back to school and getting my degree, but starting a business as well. So knowing that, okay, I've done now everything under the sun that there is to do in the wedding industry, and just in general, like working with people for that head to toe look. And when I did these jobs in the fashion industry, I learned everything. I mean, I was right in the thick of it in the garment center in New York City, and with very small businesses, female owned and operated businesses. So I got to see sort of the challenges that women faced in a small business, and learned how to build resilience and how to just really culminate those customer service skills. And I also was very gritty and felt like because I didn't have my degree until later in life that I had to work extra hard for it. So I think that's what makes a great entrepreneur, and that's what makes a great service provider too, is somebody who always feels like they have to work extra hard, because they'll always deliver the best results for you. And so I moved to Phoenix and graduated from ASU, kind of got that piece of paper that I had been just coveting for so long, and realized, okay, there's no time like the present to really go off on my own, because I had built all the skills. And I launched my styling business in 2014. And about 4 years into it, I realized I still had this itch to go back to weddings. And I had dabbled a little bit with wedding planning in my consulting business. So when I launched my business, I called it Restyle Consulting at the time. And I knew I wanted to offer kind of a full scale, full service styling, one-stop shop company. And friends of mine would say, hey, I know you've worked in the wedding industry before. Would you plan my wedding? From backyard weddings to resort weddings, I did all of it. I realized, okay, planning is not for me anymore. I've done events. I've traveled all over the world. I've done all of that stuff. Planning is planning
Yes.
is a whole nother animal, and that level of responsibility, that is a little scary.
Yes.
But that work and that experience then gave me one more sort of, like in the wedding industry, and just one more notch to say, okay, I have really truly done almost everything. I'm not a videographer or photographer, but I understand the workings of a timeline and what the bride really needs. So about 4 years in, I started offering a day of dressing service where I would be with the bride alongside her entire journey, whether it be from styling her bridesmaids or wedding party to actually being with her on the day of, and really being a mix between a wedding day concierge, a personal assistant, an on-location stylist, and an attention to detail specialist in the wedding industry who knew exactly where bouquets should be held for the best photo results, and who understood how to pose her for professional photos if she wasn't comfortable in front of the camera, to making sure there were no lint on the suits, and just really giving this like caretaker type service. And I started not getting paid and just doing trade for photos with photographers and growing that business. And now here we are, and into 2024, and it's a full blown service that I now call myself, the trademarked term, the wedding emergency stylist. And I try to do my best to save the day for brides and make sure that they have a flawless day.
I love that. What a journey. That's just incredible. I cannot imagine stepping into being a wedding planner, even having been in the wedding industry since 2005. It is such a different beast.
Yes.
And I can see where people would ask you, but I see such a strong through line in all of the pieces that you did. Like, you care about the end result, which is the photos, the feeling, the confidence, like that you actually exude as a couple on your wedding day, or even the wedding parties and the mothers of the and fathers of the and siblings, all of that. So I think that's really important, and I'm so glad to hear that. Okay, so tell me a little bit what the process of being a wedding stylist actually looks like on the wedding day.
Great question. I mean, I think a lot of people don't even know that something like this exists for them.
Yeah.
And when I started building this service, I built it from nothing. I didn't know it would become a niche service. I had no idea people would really pay for it or pay top dollar for it and consider me a true wedding vendor, which I think is so important because it really separates me from some of the personal styling work that I do, where I get really attached to my clients. And it's really hard if I can't deliver on something, or if I let them down in any way. It sometimes feels a little too close to home. But with my brides, I really truly feel like I am seen as a service that I provide. I still build a great relationship with them, but I feel a little bit less attached to the monetary side and just, the things that sort of come along with becoming really close with somebody in their closet all the time. So what it's like to be a stylist is I utilize my skills as a personal shopper and stylist to help them get dressed. So if somebody were to hire me from the beginning stages of getting engaged, you might see me doing their engagement photo styling. You might see me being booked on a 90-minute consult on how to prepare your wardrobe and how to choose a color palette for your wedding party, or
So underrated.
it is, and how to create a custom suit. I think a lot of times the guys get left in the dust, and their look is just as important to the overall cohesiveness of the style of the wedding. And
Totally.
how to make it personal to you. I think that's something I'm really good at too. I'm a really good gift giver. Gift giving is a love language of mine, and acts of service. And so I combine all of this like special, unique power that I have in helping people and really help them put those personal touches on everything wardrobe. I also work a lot with moms and dads. And I think oftentimes mother of the bride or mother of the groom feel like they don't really know where to start with the search for a wedding dress, and they want to make sure that they're taken care of and they feel beautiful so they can be there for their sons, daughters, etc. But they don't want to make it about them. And so a lot of times I'll get hired by them just on their own, and I will help source a beautiful vintage gown or help them with alterations because they maybe want to cover arms and add something to a dress, but their daughter really wanted them to wear a particular dress. So I am there to attend alterations appointments and really dream up whatever it is that they envision for themselves. Make sure they have comfortable footwear because, as we all know, the footwear is the most important thing. And we can get into that later. I know we're going to talk about some more things later. So that's like a whole nother podcast.
Yes.
But
actually,
I'll touch on it.
We should bring you back to talk about footwear because that is something that is so underrated and something that you get so many weird opinions about from other people.
Absolutely. It's a whole thing. And the change of the shoes, the comfort of the feet, like it's a real topic out there. So I really help design the perfect attire for the big day. And then like the other level of that and the other side of what I do as a dresser is I'm there on the day of your wedding. I'm there to prep and steam your wardrobe. I'm there to make sure that if your gown was pressed or steamed or cleaned leading up to the wedding, that I know where it should be sent, how it should be transported, what to point out to a cleaning provider, a cleaner, and to make sure that it's hanging perfectly high enough on your wedding day. It's breathing out of the garment bag, is protected with a drop cloth, and nobody's touching it. It's locked if it needs to make it to a location ahead of you. These are all the things that nobody thinks about that I am dotting my I's and crossing my T's for. And I really make sure that your wardrobe is in pristine condition and that your bow ties are tied to perfection. I can do all the pocket square folds. I can tie your Windsor knots. I can do all of that and put on your boutonnieres if the florist isn't sticking around for that, or if your planner needs to be executing on the design of the event. So the dressing service that I provide, I think, is the most invaluable, because a lot of my brides have a very clear vision of what they want to wear, and they actually have a really great fashion eye. Like, oftentimes when I show up to the wedding and I see what they've chosen for fashion, if I didn't work with them on it, I can't even imagine that I would have chosen anything more perfect for them. So women are getting a lot more fashion savvy, and men as well. And so what they're really getting me in there for is to make sure that they don't have to lift a finger and that nobody's stepping on the back of their train, because that's how the rescue kit came to life. Somebody stepped on the back of one of my bride's trains and the zipper broke, and I had to sew her in. That was the light bulb moment that I had, where if I wasn't there and if my professional styling kit wasn't there, what could be there in my place? So I'm there to make sure that mishaps are both prevented and solved for. And I'm also there to make you feel like the queen that you are, or the king that you are on that day, because you've put so much time, energy, effort, money, and love into making this a great day. And so I'm there to make sure that the ROI is perfection in terms of how you look to the best of my ability. And to be that last person to squeeze your hand before you walk down the aisle and let you know that you look perfect, and that I've done everything in my power to make sure that that veil doesn't get snagged on a rock, and that it's bobby pinned in there tight enough, and that when I take it out, your hair won't move. And if it does, guess what? I'm equipped to fix it. So I am there to make sure that everything goes according to plan, to the best of my ability, with wardrobe and how you look.
And I think that's something that is so underrated, or maybe underrealized, that that's even an option, because we put so much time on the front end as humans getting married. We put all of the time into like the planning part of it. Like, I want to look like this. I want to feel like this. I want things around me to look this way. And then you get to the day, and if it doesn't execute that way, it's a kind of you're set up for failure, which is always very discouraging. So having someone like you there to make sure that all of the stuff that we don't know, you just don't know what you don't know until you've gone through it. And typically, like, you probably haven't gone through a wedding in that specific dress, in that venue, in that suit, with the people around you that are there who may or may not be able to walk in their footwear and might step on you.
Oh, man. Well, and you're so right about that. Oftentimes it is the first time you've been married. And what I've noticed is that people get themselves to the finish line with wardrobe, with everything. They think they've crossed everything off. And then there's minor little things that make a huge difference in video and photo, like not having matching hangers for your bridesmaids if video is taking a pan over and there's like wire hangers and plastic garment bags and nobody has steamed the dresses, or if you're getting ready for those robe photos ahead of time and nothing has been steamed, or you're not wearing the proper undergarments, or somebody's robe is too short and they don't really want to go just in their robe, but everybody else is in their robe. Like, what do we do about that? How do we make it cohesive? So me being in the room, I can really help you cross the finish line, not just get to the finish line. And I think it's the wedding party that ends up seeing a lot of value in me too, because it's the little things like not putting on your silk bridesmaid's dress after you've lotioned and oiled your body, because it will transfer and it can't come out, or putting something overhead and not having a glam and garment shield to protect your makeup from transferring onto your dress. And the amount of times that I've had to fix emergencies like that, not just for the bride and groom, but for the people involved in the wedding, I can't even count it. So it's those people that end up saying, you were the greatest thing that happened to us today. And I can't thank you enough because I just wanted to be there for my best friend who's getting married. And you helped me feel really good. So it isn't just about the couple. It's about everyone's feeling who's paid a lot of money and made a lot of sacrifice and done a lot to get to this day.
Yeah, my personal nemesis, I think, is the hanger tags.
Let me tell you, I show up to these weddings with matching acrylic hangers that have gold hooks. They're beautiful. And I once I steam everybody's garments, I hang them all on those. So if video and media team comes in, everything looks really great when it's hanging. And everyone's really impressed just by that little thing. And I understand it's just one more thing, but that's what I'm there to do, is to think about those little things that can really make a difference in what it looks like in your video.
Yeah, totally. Oh my gosh, I appreciate that so much. So let's dive into a little bit about what are some helpful tips on how to pack for your wedding and your honeymoon? Because, we're talking about getting there and doing the thing, but what about before we get there and do the thing?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm a huge fan of a checklist. I'm a Virgo. So if anyone listening is a Virgo, you understand me. I love a checklist. It's so important. We actually have on our website, if you join our newsletter on the Rescue Kit Company, you get a free ebook that we wrote that's 25 pages, and it has a checklist, a packing checklist at the end. It's a great framework to use to send out to your wedding party and to make sure that they don't miss anything. And it even gives you like some extras to think about. And it's so important that you have a list, because depending on the types of fabric that you're wearing, you want to make sure you have the right undergarments and that you've tried things on. So that list is really crucial to making sure that everyone comes prepared, because oftentimes you're traveling and you're flying. And once you leave your home and you get to a remote place, there's no Target, there's no Amazon delivery, there's no Prime in the Bahamas, probably in a timely manner. So you have to think about those things. So starting with that checklist as the basis for everything you do is hugely important. And then one of my best tips for arriving with things looking the best possible is to pack everything as flat as you can. And if your gown or your suit jacket or whatever you're wearing is lined and the outside is embellished, I always love packing things inside out to just provide like a flat pack and to eliminate any risk of embellishment getting caught on anything else and potentially becoming damaged en route. And then going an extra step and packing it inside of a dry cleaning plastic bag, just to prevent wrinkling and then to give it one more barrier of protection. Because if you are packing a bag and then checking it, TSA is likely going to go through your bag. And if anything were to happen, you just want to make sure that the things that matter the most are protected. Anytime you can carry on, that's another obvious tip, is to make sure that you have the items that you have to be wearing on your wedding day on your body at all times, like on you, like being carried by you. Don't let it out of your sight. If you are in the wedding party, you can check everything else, but make sure that your dress or your suit and everything that you need for the day of the wedding is with you if you can. So another thing that you want to do is make sure that you get the right type of garment bag for your wedding gown. There are so many out there. The first thing I would do is consult with your bridal salon as to where you got it. Oftentimes they'll give you one, but it might not be the best for travel. And if your gown is something that can be folded up, and then once you get to your destination, you can get it pressed or cleaned. I don't recommend necessarily getting it cleaned if it doesn't need to be. Just doing a press is fine. They'll take care of it. They have all the right tools at a professional dry cleaner. But making sure that you have that travel bag so it stays really protected and that it can be folded if possible, just to make sure that you can put it in an overhead bin or hang it in a section on the plane if possible, if that's available to you. But make sure that you carry your dress on, please. Don't ever check your dress.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
The liability and the risk associated with checking your dress.
Oh man. Or even your shoes, just anything that is a family heirloom or that you are wearing on your wedding day or the night before, just bring a carry-on and make sure that it's with you if you're not shipping it ahead of time. A lot of designers will overnight ship your gown from the alterations completion and their actual store. So it'll go back to the salon where it was purchased. If it's a luxury store, maybe you can talk to them if that isn't in their plan to figure out a way for them to overnight it and protect it for you. Anytime you can fly with it, though, I always recommend that. And then I guess another thing to keep in mind is just making sure that if you are traveling and you are maybe going out of the country and you're going to a remote place, that you have checked the weather, checked the climate, check the grounds that you're going to be walking on, and just make sure that you prepare accordingly for the environment that you're going to be in, whatever that means. And it seems very broad, and maybe very obvious, but it's so important to consider backup outfits and, extras just in case. And I know we can get more into that later, but I think it's just, I'm a preparedness person. So anytime, especially, this is going to sound crazy, but trust me, it's important. If you are doing mixed match dresses for your wedding party, consider bringing an extra dress for your most forgetful friend. You have one in their size that could potentially fit the color palette.
That's a really good tip.
And if you have a forgetful groomsman, an extra black bow tie or whatever the color palette is, that's a tip across the board. I mean, I have tips coming out of my body all the time, but an extra bow tie, always make sure that you order one extra. So if they're responsible for ordering their own, which I never recommend, I always recommend you order everything and just have it with you. You don't need to send them their bow tie ahead of time. You should bring that with you. But always order an extra, because chances are one person could potentially forget it, or maybe you want to add it for one of the dads or a grandfather or whatever it is, but an extra pocket square, an extra tie, an extra bow tie, an extra white shirt. These are all just like things that come to mind because I've just seen it all.
Yeah. And a lot of those things, like if you need to return it, you can, but having the extra, you just never know what's going to happen. And there are a lot of, like, if you're someone in your wedding party is not the kind of person who thinks all of the things all the way through and is a preparedness person and checks their like gown for and then that gets lost. I would remind your wedding parties and your parents or whoever to do the same things that Risa just said too. Like, actually carry on your things that you need for the day of. If you have to figure it out for the rehearsal or whatever, it's not as big of a deal, but like you're going to be upset if your maid of honor or your best person doesn't have their outfit that day.
Yes. So you can fix that problem by being prepared.
Yes. I love that. What are some often forgotten items that couples should pack so they are fully prepared for the actual wedding day? Other than, of course, the rescue kit, which I would love to also hear a little bit about.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole basis for the product. And other than the major disasters that have happened, it's what can we do to equip you with everything that you could potentially need to prevent and solve wardrobe mishaps. And a lot of times people will do a bathroom box or something that is in the wedding suite and the getting ready room. So these are all items that you should always have. Lint roller, sewing kit, pre-threaded needles, double stick tape, body tape is another thing too.
Yeah.
It's a lot of times your wedding party will not try on their garments right before the wedding day. You would be shocked how many times I have to rig a strap, double stick tape, do body tape because they didn't prepare for the undergarments under a silk dress that might potentially show things through. They didn't think about being in the natural light in their dress. I always recommend you go step outside when you are trying on your dress and have somebody take a photo of you so you know how it's going to photograph. Little
Front
things
and
like
back.
that. Front and back. Exactly. Little things like that. So there's this whole element of preparedness that people don't think about. And like I said earlier, a lot of times the bride and groom know how to get to the finish line, but then it's the little things that they don't know could potentially be a problem because they haven't experienced a wedding before. So rescue kit items for sure. We created the bride kit just for you brides out there who are listening. And then another big thing that people don't think about are foot care items. And we talked earlier about this, but I think it's important to touch on the fact that extra shoes and things that could potentially help save your feet from a full day of walking around in heels. It is so mind-boggling to me, especially the guys who get brand new tuxedo shoes or brand new stiff shoes and footwear that don't try them on or break them in. And so you've got to be prepared with moleskin and body glide and foot gel pads or insoles and anti-blister anything, band-aids, all of that stuff. So don't forget your foot care and all of the items that you might need that could rescue you, whether it's, Advil or something like that, which we don't provide at the rescue kit. We don't want to give you anything that you have to swallow. But the little things like that that will save you and give you that longevity throughout the whole night so you can last. And it's such a trend now to see people changing into sneakers for the reception, which I absolutely love. So that's great. But if you are not one of those people and you're like, no, I spent $1,000 on these shoes and I want to wear them all night, then think about those little things that you don't want to forget. And then there's also heirloom pieces and special items that I think you want to remember too. And maybe it's you're honoring somebody who can't be with you on your big day, and little items like that can really make the day extra special. Making sure that you include those things and don't forget them and account for those. And you're something blue or things like that, and the right undergarments always. But I could go on and on about things that you should remember to bring with you. So I know we don't have that much time.
I know. And everything you're saying, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, please definitely take that. Oh my gosh. And try this. Like, if you are going to change into sneakers, make sure you can wear them with your dress without your dress getting stepped on or hooked on them. Cause if you wear, like, let's say Hoka's, which are like a bigger, like a higher profile sneaker, the like super comfy ones that are like a cloud for your feet. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Those can be wide enough and the soles are thick enough that it can actually like hook your dress when you're dancing. So practice all of those things. Like when you were saying, go outside, take a photo in the actual natural light. Yes, please do that. And think about it from that side, like all of the things that you are going to potentially change into, think about from that standpoint too, where practice it and then prepare. That's exactly right. I love everything you just said. It just makes your day so much more enjoyable because you don't have to think about it once you're there. And taking any distractions out of your life on your wedding day, that's exactly right.
If you're going to keep your change into a sneaker and keep your gown on, you can have your tailor put in another bustle for a shorter shoe. There's nothing wrong with that. I haven't seen it really before, but it just kind of came to my mind. Why not? If you have that shoe and you want to keep your long gown on and you're not changing into a party dress, do a double bustle. Like have one more, or three more hooks put in or buttons that could make it even shorter or make it a high-low or whatever it is that you can do to give your dress that extra life and allow yourself to wear sneakers. And I think that is one of the common mistakes that brides make is not trying on their shoes and walking with the dress at final alterations. And I know you want to preserve your shoes for potentially media shots or, behind the or detail shots. So put a shower cap or one of our glam and garment shields from the rescue kit company over your shoe when you're wearing it. Or walk on carpet, or put an insole in there if you want to preserve the insoles of your shoes just for while you're trying them on. And if you are going to practice your first dance in your shoe, which I think would be really smart, make sure that you are taping the bottoms of your shoes with a backside of a lint roller piece of tape and, doing a stiletto cover for the stilettos so you can preserve the shoe, because I have had to clean a bride's shoes the day before her wedding. And I'm so lucky that it came out of her white satin pumps. Her fiance stepped on her shoes while they were practicing their first dance. And my first thought was, why are you wearing your wedding shoes for that the day before the wedding? But that's okay. I realized she wanted to know what it was going to feel like. But I was lucky that I was able to clean it with our deodorant removing sponge, which I actually happen to have one right here. And it was great. It worked on surface level dirt. And this thing is my secret weapon. But it's the little things like that you don't think about. So make sure that if you have embellishments and crystals on the ends of your shoes and you have a tulle dress, your tool will get caught on your shoes when you're walking. So you might need to take some clear tape and cover those jewels just for the ceremony so you can get through and you're not tripping on yourself when you're walking down the aisle. And always kick your feet out when you're walking. I always teach people that too. But it's the little things. I mean, there's so many things to think about that you don't even know could be a potential issue. I think I've seen every potential issue, but I hope not, because then I can continue to innovate for the Rescue Kit Company.
I love it. I love it so much. These are such great tips. And honestly, these are applicable to like every part of life. I was just thinking like, this is applicable to holiday parties. This is applicable to being a wedding guest. Like maybe everyone needs a rescue kit for any sort of dress up occasion that you may have.
Absolutely. There's no maybe about it. It is the truth. It really stemmed from my professional kit as a wardrobe stylist. And we have a marketplace where you can get all the tools for anyone who gets dressed. Obviously, there's a real niche there with brides, and I love my work with brides, but it is applicable to everyone out there. Dancers, anyone who takes the stage, and influencers, anyone who's in front of the camera at any time, and anyone who gets dressed, anyone who wants to be able to wear the clothes that they have in their closet, whether it's taping your placket down if your buttons are popping open, or just making sure that you're delinted before you take the stage. It's available and useful for anyone who gets dressed.
Yeah, I mean, how many times I just got deodorant on the dress that I was wearing as I was leaving the house.
The deodorant removing sponge. I mean, this thing is the secret weapon. And people don't even, when I pull that thing out, it's like I have pulled out like the golden ticket from Willy Wonka. I mean, people they're so blown away by it. It's the simplest thing. And they didn't even know it existed. So
yeah, I didn't know.
If you're not putting, paper towels or towels in your armpits while you're getting ready and walking around, chances of you getting deodorant or sweat in the armpit of your gown or your dress as a bridesmaid are very good. So yeah. My first tip is to put tissues or paper towel or towels in your armpits if you are somebody that is a sweater, or if you're wearing greasy deodorant. And I always say apply your deodorant after you get dressed, or your lotion or oil. Like if you can abstain from using oil on the wedding day, please do. Or just let it fully dry and make sure that you pat your body down after just to pick up any excess. But these are all just little tips and tricks that really make a difference, because when bridesmaids come to me and they say, oh my gosh, I have oil all over my dress and it keeps getting worse, or I spilled my espresso martini on my dress, what do I do?
Yes.
There's only so much I can do. I'm not a dry cleaning service. So we want to try to prevent all of these mishaps so you can still enjoy your day.
Yes. And you don't have to think about it, because what's better than that? Like you want to focus on your wedding. You don't want to focus on this stuff.
Exactly.
I love it. Well, okay. Thank you so much for being on this podcast. Risa, this has been so educational for our Wedding Dish listeners. Where can they find you online?
Yes. Well, they can find the Rescue Kit Company on Instagram. That's where we're the most active. We're trying to be a TikTok brand. So if anyone wants to come help us, please, this is a shout out at the Rescue Kit Co. That is our handle across the board. And online, of course, on our website, therescuekitco.com. And then me personally, I'm very active on my personal Instagram. It's just at Risa Costas. And my website is risacostas.com. So come follow me, come say hi, ask me all your wedding questions. And if you happen to run across our website and purchase something as a gift or for yourself, we want to hear what you used and what you thought of it and what your experience was like.
Yeah. And also let us know how much you love that deodorant sponge, because I feel like I need to get myself one now.
You do. You do. That feeling is valid. You need one. Everyone needs one. It's one of the most inexpensive ways to protect your clothing.
I love that. And of course, we will link out to all of this on our show notes at theweddingdishpodcast.com, as well as on our Instagram and in the description. So it'll be super easy for you to find Risa and the Rescue Kit Co. and get your own. I think I'm going to have to buy myself one now.
Yes, you do. And we'd love to give your listeners a special code too. So you can tell me what you want that to be, and we'll get that set up for you. And you can link that in the show notes as well.
That would be great. If we can do the wedding dish, that would be great. And I will link out to that too. Thank you so much for doing that. That's so sweet.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
I love that. And I'll send that to you later too. You don't have to memorize it in this moment.
I've got it. I've got it.
Everyone, thank you so much for tuning into the wedding dish today. Give us a follow, rate, and review. And, just keep coming back, listening to all of these wonderful tips. Risa, thank you so much for sharing so generously today. This was absolutely educational, so wonderful. We'll definitely have to bring you back about, I have 2 things on my list: shoes, footwear, and wedding colors, because also sometimes I think it's hard to choose wedding colors. You want to choose your favorite. Not always the best move. Sometimes it is. Just depends. And we'll have to bring Risa back to talk about that later, everybody.
Thank you so much for having me, and I can't wait to come back.
Have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you, Risa, for joining me, and we'll talk again soon. Bye, everybody.